Not yet.
Click on the link.
There we go.
All right, okay, folks. Well, welcome this evening, and beautiful summer weather we're having. So I'll call the meeting to order, and would you like to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Wilson.
Here.
Collins.
Here.
Johnson. Here. Kellum.
Here.
Kopsinski.
Here.
Coburn.
Here.
Okay, next for our scheduled business this evening, we have a lighter agenda. And first would be under communications and council. Your first one is accepting Cameron Settlemeyer's resignation from the Landmarks Advisory Commission. This is on page 3.
Move we accept the resignation and send a thank you letter.
Second.
Is that a second?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. All right.
I'll second it for writing a letter of appreciation.
Yep, that's what was said. So, and actually, it's unfortunate. They're going to be moving out of state, and Cameron has been absolutely wonderful, him and Kate,
Yes, he is.
in Albany, and volunteering and being on our boards and commissions, and hopefully they will be able to move back soon. So we're going to sure miss them in the community. Okay, any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, next is accepting Robert Duncan's resignation from the Human Relations Commission.
Move to approve and accept and send a letter of thank you.
Thank you, and appreciate,
Second.
Okay, second, all right. Must be the,
Just because I got bollocked up doesn't mean you have to, too.
must be the weather getting us to move slow this evening, so, yes, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, and next is the Human Relations Commission's annual report for 2013. And the report was in here from page 5 to 12. There isn't any members here this evening from the Human Relations Commission, but city manager attends all those meetings. If you have any questions, I'm presuming Wes can answer them for you.
And in the spirit of honesty, the city manager attends most of the meetings, and Marilyn ably helps out and attends ones where we've been swapping lately, particularly with Marilyn having to be involved in the Public Safety Facilities Committee. But
Okay, any questions? All right. Okay, there's no action for that. Just the annual report. And we just really appreciate, though, the commission. I mean, they're there for our Art and Air Festival, a lot of the Festival Latino. They're there for many events, and a very active group, and really appreciate all the service that they provide for our city. Okay, next is public hearings, and what I'll do is I'll open the public hearing, which will be for all 4 items in front of us, in case and if somebody wanted to come forward. So with that, at 7:20 p.m., I will open the public hearing for declaring the city's eligibility to receive state revenues, and this will be adopting the 2014-15 annual budget and adopting the 2015-2019 capital improvement program, and setting rates for wastewater system use and repealing resolution number 6230. Is there anyone here that would like to comment on these items? Okay, not seeing anyone. And would staff like to touch base on any of these before we close the public hearing?
I put together a presentation on the sewer rate increase, similar to the one you had on water, that kind of told the story of where does the money go, but I will defer to council if you don't want me to go through that. It is a little bit lengthy, again, trying to tell the story. So if council would like, I can proceed with that. If not, I defer to you.
is it materially different than what you've already presented to us?
The facts are not different than what you have in the report, but there is information that that talks about what do our sewer collection crews do, and what do we do at the treatment plant? Essentially, where does the money go? What is the cost impact to the average resident, that sort of thing? But, you know,
Will this
and
presentation be visible to the general public, or is it?
Right.
yes, it would be.
I think it'd be good just to have that.
That's what I was going to say, you know, so that, I mean, we might know most of what's going on, but for the public, I think it's good for them to see it. So, and besides, Mark went through the trouble.
Let me do this first, Mark.
Sure.
Let's go ahead and erase the wastewater, item number 4, from opening of the public hearing, and then, so we'll close that at 7:21, and then the council can take action on these 3 items, and then I'll reopen the public hearing for item number 4. Okay. So, council, on number 1, declaring the city's eligibility to receive state revenues is on page, there's a resolution 14, on page 14 and 15.
Move adoption of the resolution. Second?
Okay, and that's for resolutions 14 and 15?
Yes.
Okay. All right, any discussion on item number 1? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, that one's carried. And next is adopting the 2014-2015 annual budget, and this is a resolution on page 17.
Move for adoption.
Second.
All right, any discussion?
I'll
Okay.
just make
Yep.
one comment, because Jeff isn't here, and he's usually the one that says it. You know, we can have minor issues, different issues or whatever, and we have a packed house. We pass a $161 million budget, and we have 1 person here. You know, that's
3.
pretty sad. 2? Is there 2?
3.
No, that's staff.
Their staff, yeah. So, you know, I mean,
No.
well,
1,
Corsasso, I'm
2,
sorry.
3.
I'm sorry.
2 media, 1
There you go,
citizen.
you know, and so, you know, I just think it's kind of sad, you know, because it's almost like, okay, well, it kind of tells us like, we're going to pass it, you know, I mean, maybe, but then down the line, there's questions about how we do things, how we are doing things, and so it's always kind of baffling to me why this isn't important enough for people to show up.
Well, and then each of our budget meetings this year, you know, all 4 weeks, we didn't have any citizens that came
Yes.
to the budget meetings,
Yes.
but we
And so-
did have a very wonderful, dedicated budget committee that attended and spent many hours going through the budget and reviewing, so we really appreciate their service and providing us this guidance this evening. Yep, Rich?
On the subject of the Budget Committee and how the budget was done this year, I think it was much better than before from my perspective, because there were a lot more questions. Obviously, people were connected to it a whole lot better.
Yeah, Wes?
Yeah, responding to Bessie's concern, because it's one that I've heard many times over many years, not only here, but in other cities as well, and not just in cities. I mean, I think it's true for school districts and counties and other organizations. Oregon is unique, and there are not a lot of places that put as much process into budgets as Oregon does, where you have a citizens budget committee that meets and approves the budget prior to the city council getting together and deliberating and adopting the budget. And so we stretch this thing out over a lot of months. I mean, we start working on it as staff really even before the beginning of the calendar year. And so it goes on for a long period of time, and there's a sort of a lot of steps to it. And we get a lot of input from the council in terms of the strategic plan. And so, by the time you get to this point, it's pretty anticlimactic. Even though you don't have a lot of necessarily observers of the process, you have the involvement of 7 citizens on the budget committee itself who review the document. Plus, typically there will be articles in the newspaper and that kind of thing. And of course, we televise the budget hearings. So there's certainly opportunity for people to get involved should they choose to do it. And of course, the other point is that what I've seen, and I think we all have, is that folks when they're upset or concerned about something, they will show up.
Right.
And at this point, apparently, they're not too upset about this budget because, we're not hearing about it.
I just was thinking about what Rich said, and I guess I feel just the opposite. I don't feel so strongly that, I'm going to push for going back to the way it was, but I have been through 6 or 7 budget sessions that were always consecutive nights and found a lot of value in that continuity from night to night to night. And for me, that was completely lost this year in spreading it out and having days and days and days between the meetings. So just a different perspective. I know some people wanted to try it, and we tried it, and that's fine, but personally, I didn't like it. So.
Now, Floyd?
Just to comment that I had several discussions throughout the year about the number that we adopt, the 160 million. That's inclusive. I want to make sure that that's not our operating budget. That's inclusive of all of our reserves, systems development charges, capital reserves, building maintenance or replacement, equipment replacement. And I didn't add them all up, but I think it's probably between 100 and 120 is the actual operating budget.
Actually, lower than that. It's probably more like, last time I looked last year, it was like 78 million, I think. It's something pretty close.
So I guess the point is that while we budget that amount every year, we full well know that we don't anticipate expending that 160 million, because a lot of that will be carried over for subsequent years for projects and for specific items that those reserves are established for.
And by budget law, we also included in that number are transfers from one fund to another. Right. So it's moving money around as opposed to expending additional amounts.
Well, I don't think we could spend it all, even if we thought we wanted to, could we?
Well, what you're doing by adopting the budget is giving authority to spend as the budget proposes. And so you are providing authority to allocate resources in the way that the budget calls for.
Okay, all right, there's a motion and a second. Oh, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Okay, and motion carried, 5-1. Okay, council, next is adopting the 2015-2019 capital improvement program. So this is a meeting, we had a joint meeting with our budget committee and our planning commission to go over the upcoming 5 years of capital projects within the city. And this is just adopting that program.
Move adoption of the resolution on page 23.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carried. Okay, so now what I'll do is at 7:29 PM, I'll reopen the public hearing, and this will be for setting rates for wastewater system use, and Mark has the presentation.
So I'm probably breaking a golden rule. I'm speaking when not necessarily asked to speak, and maybe that'll get me in trouble. But in reality, I do appreciate the opportunity to tell the story about how we deal with wastewater in Albany. There's a lot of good work that happens. Tell the story of where does that money go, answer questions, and try and be as transparent as possible. So if at any time you want to pull me off, let me know. I'll try and get through this fairly quickly. So I want to discuss real quickly our current rate recommendation, tell you where the money goes, tell the public where the money goes, and then just real briefly look at our updated 5-year projection. So a year ago, when we came to you, we anticipated that we would need an 8% rate increase this year to maintain the targets that council set of generating $2.3 million for capital investment, primarily in our collection system, is what that money is targeted towards. Our updated evaluation showed that we could still meet that target by the year 2016-17 with a 6% rate increase. However, sticking with that projected 8% rate increase would be a nice first albeit small step, towards addressing many of those unfunded issues that are not included in our rate plan. Those are collection system capacity issues that we have not programmed in. Most of the discussion tonight is going to be about rates and revenue, but there's two sides to the discussion. That's the expense side and the revenue side. And I want to show you the slide here. This is our 5-year history of actual O&M expenses. It goes through fiscal year 2013-14. We're in, 2012, 2013. We're in fiscal year 2014. Those numbers will be available in a few months. But I think we've done a fairly good job of trying to control our costs. And I want to remind you, we're able to control those costs even while we're facing significant operating costs down at our wastewater treatment plant dealing with the sludge. So I briefly touched on it. Why do we need a rate increase even though we're able to maintain our O&M expenditures? We want to stay on track to hit that $2.3 million annual capital revenue for investment back in the system. This is replacing old and worn out pipes. You're going to see some pictures of these in a moment. We do feel that predictable and moderate rate increases are a more sustainable way to go rather than wild swings in rates. Construction costs do appear to be rising. The Engineering News Record Index for this past year is over 7%, which is quite a jump. It's about twice what we've been seeing recently. And then as I spoke, there are unfunded needs out there, capacity issues with the pipes, and our issue down at the water reclamation facility that we need to deal with. So if 6% will do to keep us on track for the 2.3, why would council consider sticking with the projected 8%? The capacity improvements, while we don't have our arms completely around what those are, our early estimates say those will exceed $25 million in costs. These, if we don't address these issues, not only will we have sewer overflows, but we'll be hamstrung somewhat in being able to respond to economic development, whether it's a new industry or industrial or residential growth east of I-5. So we think it's important to keep that in mind. So what's the impact for the average resident? At a 6% rate increase, they would see $2.79 increase in their monthly sewer bill. And if we implement the 8%, it's about 93 cents more at $3.72 per month. Now I want to tell you a little bit about where the money goes. Connect what customers pay with what they get. So let's break down what they pay. So this is for sewer only. A 6% rate increase, they pay $1.64 a day. If we go with the 8%, they'll be paying $1.67 a day. This here shows you what do they pay for combined sewer and water, so they're complete city utilities, and it ranges depending on their usage and the rate increase. Somewhere between $3 and $3.40 a day is what our customers pay for sewer and water service. So if you compare that with other services that our customers are getting, I do want to say these numbers are not official. I didn't go to the cable company. What I did is I actually looked at my bills. So a family of 4 could expect to pay about $5.34 a day for their cell phone plans, $4 a day for their cable, TV, and internet combined.
Mark, could you back up one slide?
Sure.
And you're showing the what the cost would be per day for the 6% or 8%. What is it currently for 6 and 8 units? Because that's what the jump's going to be from what it is currently to those new figures.
Yeah, and I'm trying to figure out where I have that total cost per day. Currently, if someone is using 6 units, they are paying $90.64 a month. If they are using 8 units of water, they're paying $100.48 a month.
So this would be adding $3 to that.
No.
No.
This is per
These are per
day.
day.
This is the per day,
Per day,
this
so
is the per day cost for,
Yeah, okay.
5 average.
Because, I mean, 335 times 30, and you know.
So that is the cost per day, not the increase per day.
Correct.
and actually I misspoke, those are the numbers they will pay if a 6% sewer rate increase is implemented. If it's, currently they're paying $87.50 for 6 units a month, and $97.07 for 8 units a month.
Going to go to that 90 and 102.
Correct.
Slide rule.
Yeah.
I do, but it's at home.
What's a slide rule?
Yeah.
And then if you combine,
Anyway.
if you combine the electricity and natural gas, about $3.70 a day. So again, we're comparing $3 to $3.40 a day for sewer and water to these costs.
Expensive cell phone plan.
Well, we have 4 people.
You still have an expensive cell phone plan.
Okay. So what do customers get? They get reliable service, and almost our ability to provide reliable service is an enemy to us because it's out of sight, out of mind. Imagine how people might think if there was sewage running in the streets and they were getting sick, their animals, their kids were getting sick. But we do provide reliable service that we're able to keep people healthy, we're able to keep our environment healthy, and we are ready to serve growth and industrial development here. As I mentioned, we have some issues with capacity we have to address. But if we address those, we're going to be an attractive community for people to locate, to live and locate their businesses. So where does the money go? 3 places: debt payment, operation and maintenance, capital investments. On debt, $5.2 million a year is what we're paying off, and that should be paid off in 2034. Operation and maintenance. Well, where does that money go? It goes to our field crews who are out doing cleaning and inspection of our sanitary sewer pipes. You're going to see a graphic of the work they've done in the last 3 years. I think you'll be amazed. We inspect our manholes, 2,500 manholes. The lower picture is a vac truck, and you may remember earlier, I think it was late winter, we brought a request to council for purchase of this replacement vehicle. On the left there, that's our televising van where we go in behind the cleaner and send an actual television camera down the line and assess the line. And you can see there we have our crew member going through with the camera, noting deficiencies, noting where the sewer laterals are. So here's the graphic I was referring to. You can see between 2011 and 2014, we've done an amazing job as far as getting to know our sewer system. If you would have asked me in 2011, what's the condition of our sewer system, I would have said bad. And you would have said how bad, and I would have said pretty bad. And I couldn't get much more specific than that. But the work that our crews have done here, now we know what the condition of our sewer is. Our crews were trained on how do you rate the pipe so that we have consistent ratings. And these ratings are national ratings, so we're being consistent with other communities. And we're able to prioritize where do we spend the limited funds we have, which pipes are about to fail, which pipes have maybe 5 years of service left, which are in good shape, and we don't expect having to address them. So in those 3 years, about 176 miles of pipe was surveyed. So that's 80% of our system. And we've now turned our attention. This is just about all of our sewer collection system. There's some large diameter lines which we will be having inspected by a contractor over the next year. We have a few lines that we just can't get down because of obstructions that we're trying to address. But we're turning our attention to inspecting our manholes, because that's another place where you can have infiltration and other issues, and you'll see a slide what can happen with issues at a manhole. Here's some pictures of Albany's sanitary sewer system. As you can see, there might be some problems with these pictures. On the left-hand corner, that's called a protruding tap. That's where a sewer service or a side connection has just essentially been stuck in the pipe, and it's an obstruction. On the left, you have roots in a pipe. The upper picture on the right is actually a bend in the pipe, not at a manhole, a good place for things to hang up and cause a blockage. So we have issues out there. As I told you, we use specific standards to rate the pipe. I won't go into all the detail, but as you can see, almost 65% of our pipe is unlikely to fail in the foreseeable future. That's because of its current condition. We have about a little over 1% of our pipe is actually under repair right now. That's where that $2.3 million, most of that money is going, is to try to replace and repair these pipes. We have another 7% of our pipes that are most likely to fail within the next 5 years. And we're trying to knock off those and get to those most severe pipes that might fail, cause blockages, have sewer back up in basements, pour out of manholes into creeks or streets. So that's what we're targeting, is those potential failure places. Here's a map. We're able to map where these deficiencies are. Again, we've come a long way in 3 short years. A real nice tool of being able to map this is, as we look at our capacity issues that we have, we can overlay where do we have capacity issues, where do we have structural issues, and that helps us prioritize how to spend those limited dollars, where we can get at both capacity and structural issues. It also helps us understand, if you have a pipe that's way up on the end of a cul-de-sac and it fails, it may impact 3 residences. However, if you have a sewer pipe that's down near the river and it fails, that could impact thousands of residents. So we overlay those risk issues with the condition, again, to really try and target those resources we have.
I think I see my backyard as the first 5 years. That's
That may be
comforting.
So here's just some information we've gathered so far on our manhole inspections. We've just initiated this effort, as you can see, and we've gotten to a little over 50%. We've gotten to all but about 40% of our manholes, or have attempted to. We have a few that are buried that we can't get to, that we've got to address so that we can do the inspection. Really, the inspections happen, it almost has to be 2 inspections. One is in the summer when the flows are low, and you can see are there issues all the way down to the bottom of the manhole. And then in the winter when the groundwater comes up, you need to do another inspection. Are there places where water and infiltration is coming in that we need to address? So it's quite an effort to get to all these manholes, but we will have data on those manholes similar to what we have on our pipe system here within a year or so. So then we respond to almost 300 service calls a year. We respond to almost 3,000 service line locates. Here's one of our Vector trucks. This was a sanitary sewer spill. We had a force main that broke, and we had raw sewage on the ground. We're out there responding. Won't spend much time on this. This is a breakdown of all the different calls we address by year. So we are tracking what are our issues out there. That helps educate us again. Where do we spend our money? What's happening in our system? We treat almost 3 billion gallons of wastewater in 2013. And that's an interesting thing, because low flows can be around 6 million gallons a day. High flows can be 60 million gallons a day. So our crew that is out there at the water reclamation facility, there may be, you could call them zookeepers or farmers, because they're tending to billions of organisms that are helping clean up our wastewater, making sure that they're happy and healthy. They're doing proactive maintenance on pumps and all sorts of other mechanical systems down there to keep things running. As you can imagine, we can't just wait for things to break and then fix it when you're getting 40 million gallons of water hitting the treatment plant. We're also operating talking water gardens. That's a new thing for us. We're into about year 3, and we're still learning what does it take to operate that on a yearly basis, working on getting the plants established out there. There's our treatment plant under construction, treatment plant, and the wetlands out there. We also maintain 11 sanitary sewer lift stations in the city of Albany, and by contract, we manage or operate 4 lift stations for the city of Millersburg. Our mechanics, electricians, and control guys are out there. People are out there all the time, as you can see, responding in inclement weather. Just because it snows or the power goes out doesn't mean we can just go home. We've got to go make sure we don't have sanitary sewer backups and overflows. We also run an industrial pretreatment program in accordance with the DEQ regulations. I think we have 17 permitted industrial users that we monitor monthly, we work with. We respond to code enforcement issues, believe it or not. And we support our stormwater water quality programs. This is part of our industrial pretreatment, not a pretty picture, but it's things we deal with on a daily basis. Code enforcement, going out and addressing issues with illegal discharges and things like that. Here we had a paint spill into our storm drain system. So you remember I told you you can have issues at manholes. Here's a good example. And I'm moving into what do we do on the capital and engineering side of things. This issue took place, I think it was in February. This is a manhole along our riverfront interceptor, which serves a large portion of the city, taking lines that are coming through the downtown core area and then transporting that waste down to our wastewater treatment plant. A manhole here, we had a sinkhole open up, and we jumped on that. We had a contractor on board. We worked, I think, over 36 hours to get this done, but you can see it's a huge issue. We had a line break or sever there right at the manhole and brought in all this material. Worked late into the night to get things restored. So in addition to responding to emergencies, which we hope to reduce by investing in our system, the way we invest in it is replacing private sanitary sewer laterals. This is one of a city program that almost all residents like you when you're done with it, and that's fairly unique for a city program. But if someone has a failing sewer lateral and it meets specific criteria, the city will go in and replace that line one time. And we have a lot of happy customers and customers who use that frequently. Then we also design and manage the construction for all our capital pipe replacement. We do cured-in-place pipe, we do pipe bursting, and open trench. The first two we use wherever we can because those cost less and they're less invasive onto the streets and our customers' backyards. Here's a crew, a contract crew, doing a cured-in-place pipe. This is a pipe bursting operation where you put a bursting head in and it breaks up the pipe ahead of you and you drag this pipe in behind. And then here's an open trench project. You can see we're actually doing this project at night, minimizing traffic impacts. So in engineering, we also manage the city's response to water quality regulations. We have staff who is involved at the state and national level trying to keep our pulse on and direct regulatory issues, trying to minimize impacts on us from a financial standpoint, trying to make sure that those regulations are attainable, they're reasonable, so we do try to be proactive in managing that. Obviously, we're not in the driver's seat on that. We update and maintain our sanitary sewer system model. Again, that's important to show us where do we have capacity issues. We review development proposals, respond to citizens' inquiries, and bill 17,000 accounts monthly. That's bill and process payments. So we do a 5-year rate projection for you each year. You know, we keep that rolling through. We look at revenues, anticipated revenues and expenditures. And again, those are just anticipated, and things can change. On the revenue side, our biggest horse pulling the cart is our rates. SDCs comes along second. Those are very much development driven. We get a little bit from fees, and that's really our funding source for addressing all these issues, our debt, O&M, and capital needs. So we made the budget that you approved has we estimated that we're going to get about $14.25 million. That was based on a 6% rate increase. If an 8% rate increase is approved tonight, we will, well, we hope, assuming all the other assumptions stay the same, we will see an increase of over $200,000 in revenues. Those funds will be placed in capital reserve to be able to address capital issues as they come up and build those reserves to address the structural issues and the capacity issues.
Question.
Yeah.
According to financial sheet, we're now at 101% of revenue for the year. Is that?
I haven't looked at that, but that could be.
We have one more month to go.
We have a partial month. Some of the billings, so we bill in 5 different cycles. So throughout the month, people are getting their meters read and their bills sent through that time. So there will be some people who we have already collected anything we will collect from them in June. There'll be others that will collect through the remainder of this month. And then at the end of the fiscal year, obviously, that rolls over into that next year.
My question then is about, if we're talking 6%, well, 6% plus 1%, whatever, plus whatever we get the rest of this month.
Correct.
Would be, so it could be 9%,
Well,
10%, including, or 9% if we do 6%, could be 3% over, 2 more percent, possibly.
well, so you're right. If we collect more than we anticipated and budgeted for, that goes into our beginning balance. And again, what happens with that money is it goes into our capital reserve. Now, next year, if our projections and our assumptions are correct, we're not, you're right, we would build our 6% or 8%, again, if everything stays the same, would be based on what we actually earned this year. Each year is a little different. We do our best to hit that target. We also generally try to not be over-optimistic on those revenue projections. Did that get at your question, or is there something else I can? Okay. So in our projections, we are conservative with our SDC revenue estimates. The 5-year projection is only assuming that in the out years, we're only getting $320,000 a year in SDCs. We've seen, and I've got a chart you'll see, we've seen an uptick in SDC revenue as development has happened. And next year, when we bring this to you, I'm going to be more comfortable if we have 2 years of this increase, of bumping this up. And I'll show you what the effect that might have on our rates moving forward. So here's our rate revenue history for the past 5 years. And here's where, as I said, the SDC revenues, our 5-year average is about $417,000. 3-year average, because of that big bump, is right around $429,000. You can see, though, in fiscal year 10-11 and 11-12, we were down around that $320,000. And as I said, in the projection you have before you tonight, we stayed conservative with the 320. Next year, we'll bump, assuming that we get increased revenue, we will bump that up. And that impacts, well, I'll get into it with the graph. It might be a little easier to see here. This graph, I think you've seen it before. What I want you to pay attention to is the lower end of the graph, and you have that dotted line that goes down to 0 in fiscal year 2016-17. That is the amount of money in SDCs we have that are eligible or available to pay their share of the sanitary sewer debt service. If our revenue goes up in SDCs, that dotted line will get pushed further to the left into maybe 17-18 or 18-19. As that gets pushed to the right, as it gets pushed further to the right, we need less rate money to make up that difference. So in those out years in 2016-17 through 18-19, maybe we won't need those same rate increases to maintain the targets we have right now. I hope that didn't confuse anyone.
No, if we get more development, life is good.
Life is better.
If you're an optimist, life is good.
So again, the $2.3 million is what our current target is. It allows us to address the worst pipes that we have in the next 10 years, but it doesn't address all our capacity issues and the issues down at the water reclamation facility. As I said, these are projections. There are variables out there. Rate revenues, up, down. SDC revenue, up, down. Personnel and operating expenses, we're working hard to keep those in line. And then you have the potential for unforeseen capital needs. However, as you invest more money in replacing these failed lines, your risk of unanticipated capital needs will drop. You're going to have less surprise failures. This is a graph that shows our projection for the next 5 years. Again, next year you'll get a new projection. And then this is a table, and I'm going to hand out a hard copy for you because I know it's hard to read there, but I'll let you take it home. I'm going to pass it out, and I'll mention something about it.
Can you also go back one slide, Mark, while that's being passed out? I was curious what happens to the far right, 18, 19. Is that 4%?
Yes, that's 4%, and it's not showing any other projection because that's the first time it's been in our 5-year window. So as you move forward, you'll see, same with the water rates. The 5th year out there, you'll see the new projection based on our estimates. I guess I should have explained this a little better. The blue that you see are the actual rate increases that were in place. In 2011-12, there was no rate increase. In lieu of a rate increase, $870,000 of Pepsi settlement money was transferred to the sewer fund to eliminate the need for a rate increase. Then in 12-13, we had projected that a 9% rate increase was needed, but our new projections brought that in at 8%. In 13-14, we assumed an 8% or projected an 8% was going to be needed, and indeed that's what was instituted. And then in 14-15, that's what we're talking about today. You see the 6% is the minimum we need to stay on track. The 8% is what we had projected previously. And then our projections further out really haven't changed, but if SDC revenues continue up, if rate revenue continues to beat our projections, those numbers could shift down if all we're going to do is maintain the targets we have today. Did that get at your question, Bill?
Yes.
Excuse me, Councilor Coburn. So this table here, we've shown this table before. And unfortunately, on the overhead, Albany doesn't show up real well. We're about a third of the way down the page. And you'll see that Albany is, we're showing our rankings for different usages of water. And this is complete and entire utility bills that different communities pay. Sewer, water, street, storm drain. Obviously, we don't have a street or storm drain utility. But a couple things I'd like you to note. In the colored highlights there are communities that are fairly close neighbors. And wherever it's highlighted, they actually have higher rates than the city of Albany. And I highlight that not to bash them, but oftentimes, people throw out the idea, Albany has the highest rates in the state. Well, we don't even have the highest rates in the area. The other thing I want you to note is our rankings. You'll see we're ranked, if just our base fees were 14th. Just 6 months ago, when I came to you for the water rate increase, we were ranked 12th. So we're dropping down the scale. For 6 units of water, we were ranked 7th. Now we're 9th. We were 10th on 800 cubic feet. We're now 10th. What that's a reflection of, I believe, is other communities having to invest in their system as Albany has and is doing. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. I appreciate your forbearance in letting me give the dog and pony show. Any questions?
Any questions of Mark? Okay. I think this was great presentation, Mark, and I hope this will be frequently on our city cable channel too, to kind of really inform the citizens, so that's great.
Will the PowerPoint also be available online for folks to?
We can make it online, yep, make it available online, yep.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if the print on the axes, does that show up if somebody's trying to watch it on TV? No, I'll go to the slide previous. From where I sit here, I can't read the numbers on either the vertical or the horizontal axis.
And either.
No, I don't know. Can you people read
No.
it? And I'm wondering if people can read it on
I can see the
TV.
lines.
And
Well, we
I wonder
will,
if you could use a bigger font is what I'm trying to
See
get.
them
Sure.
on the left side, the left vertical column.
They can't see them over there.
okay, yeah, duly noted. We'll work on trying to make it a little easier.
Now, this
to
is
read.
fine for the printed page, but for
Sure.
this kind of a presentation or TV, I think it'd be a little difficult.
Okay, thanks for the input, yeah.
One comment on the slide where you had all the comparisons. Immediately above us is Corvallis, and you look across the rankings, and they're so low. And I think at least a portion of that number generation is Corvallis invested millions of dollars in their water system years ago. And they also built that wastewater treatment plant in the mid-'70s that's now paid for. So they used the timber off of Mary's Peak to replace the pipe in the ground and didn't have to go to the ratepayer.
But they're looking at upgrading, aren't they, their new wastewater?
Yes, they're looking
Yeah.
at, yeah, they have to do some additional work down there.
Corvallis also has not done anything about the temperature issue as of yet, so.
Yeah. Mhm. Okay, any other questions? Let's see, I did open the public hearing on this, and I'll ask again if there's any public comment on the item number 4. Not seeing any, and with that, I will close the public hearing at 8:05 PM. And council, what would you like to do with this item? There's a resolution on page 33.
Move for adoption of the resolution.
Little is it?
Okay, is there a second?
See it first.
Second.
Second. Okay, any discussion?
I'd be much happier if it was 6. We are generating more, and if you add because this is done every year, we're going to we have 1 extra right now, and would probably have at least 2 more. 6% would make the total 9%. So it would be 1 more than the 8% that we were talking about. because we're getting extra revenue. I think we need to raise it, that's not a question. I think we shouldn't raise it any more than we need to meet our projection, and I think 6 does it. I think 5 would do it, but I know 6 would do it.
Discussion, Bill?
I guess my thought on, I'm okay with the 8%, and my thinking is one of the points that Mark made is the sooner we can fix some of these areas that are destined to fail, the sooner we avoid some catastrophic consequences. An example was the manhole that he showed. So on one hand, yeah, we can get by with 6. I think that additional 2% allows us maybe to accelerate the improvements that need to be made. And I think going along with the idea of accelerating those projects is, as Mark indicated, the construction costs continue to go up. So as we delay some of those projects, not only do the costs go up for those projects, but we're just kind of gambling that we can fix them before they fail. So I do see a benefit in the additional 2% and moving ahead with more of those projects.
Mark, a question. One of the issues that we've been talking about for a lot of years is the issue of, I think it's the Cox Creek Interceptor that serves the east side.
Right.
And the potential for that. I know there was at least one business that actually chose not to locate because we had some constraints, or at least that was the initial talk. What does the difference do for us in terms of our ability to get that issue resolved so that we can stop talking about it and actually get it fixed?
It's a step in the right direction. The 2% doesn't solve that issue, but it is a step in the right direction to creating the reserves that maybe we can address that without having to go out for a bond measure if we can build the reserves up enough. It's a significant, it's multi-millions of dollars.
Yeah, so it's not even in the CIP. It's
Unfunded.
It is not.
Unfunded, as it's listed as an unfunded.
Yes.
$4 million of the unfunded portion for Cox Creek alone.
Right.
That's in the CIP document that we just adopted tonight.
Right.
That
Correct.
not only show what's planned for the 5 years, but what's outside the 5-year window. And that Cox Creek Interceptor currently is outside the 5-year window.
And it is currently undersized. It's not,
Right.
it will be undersized. It currently is. We just, it's not in the funded because we don't have the money to address it. And, maybe the silver lining to the slowdown was we haven't had a lot of push for development east of I-5.
I'm sorry, it's about 8 million because there's several pieces of it.
That's right. You're right.
So on the resolution itself on page 33, 34, maybe I'm missing it, but where does it actually say what the rate will be?
So the rate is actually shown on the attachments, starting on page 37.
Okay, and does the resolution indicate that it's based, that there's attachments to that, or they just are part and parcel of it? Exhibits, okay.
Yeah.
Yep. So that,
Okay,
while it doesn't
does
say
exhibit,
it's going
okay.
up by X percent, it's actually, the calculation is already done, the actual number is there. And then this resolution is posted to our webpage, and people can see what am I paying.
Just for the potential viewing public, the water and sewer funds are operated as what's called an enterprise fund, which means any money that is not expended, that is budgeted, stays within the fund and rolls over for use by that fund. It's not a use it or lose it, as some people like to call it. So any additional money you have in revenues that are beyond your projections builds your balance faster to be able to address these emergency needs. Do you have an idea what that manhole cost you down on the riverfront?
$60,000.
$60,000 for one manhole failure. Ouch. When I was doing what Mark is doing, we were afraid that whole First Street or Water Avenue interceptor was on the verge or had problems that could fail at any time. And that's the entire interceptor, and that thing, if I remember right, it's about 35 feet deep, or
Yes,
there
in
under.
places,
And
yeah.
goes down Water Avenue, and it goes through a lot of the lots that are being developed down there. And so we can't really afford to wait for that thing to fail. We have to identify what the problems are and get the problems fixed before failure occurs. Because that interceptor drains everything from the Calapooya River, probably over to Gary Street at least, and to the south. So even all the way out to, 34th Street on the west side of Pacific, and the Hackleman District, the Monteith District, and even beyond Pacific. The old portion of town, that First Street Interceptor, or Water Avenue Interceptor services, and we can't afford to wait for that thing to fail. So as we build more, if there are more revenues, it carries over, builds the beginning balance, allows us to address those types of things sooner.
We had a plan, is what I was pointing out. The plan was to build a certain amount of money in a certain amount of time.
Well, the $2.3 million was only the portion that's in the CIP that we know about, the likely. It wasn't building anything towards those catastrophics. And so what Mark's comment was, anything what is in excess of revenue, we put away into the reserve for these capacity and structural problems. And I can almost guarantee you within 5 years, there will be a structural or capacity problem either between the Cox Creek Interceptor or the Water Avenue Interceptor.
So the new housing that's going on there across the street from Water Avenue, does the interceptor go in the street there, or is it?
I don't remember the map.
I believe it's along the riverfront there, between the housing development and the river, which has its own challenges to maintain.
So it'd be under the Dave Clark Pass, perhaps?
Yes.
Okay.
It moved from being out in the street, crosses the old Inland Quick Freeze properties, I remember, and then goes under the Dave Clark Path. And one of the issues is always, how in the heck do you get to it?
Yeah.
So Mark, on page 35, it says, for the residential, and it's under the rate schedule. And then it shows the difference from the increase, but under fixed charge, under residential, that's the base rate, correct? And then you pay per unit on top of it?
That's correct.
Okay, so it says 35.25, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so on the chart that you handed out, that showed the comparison with the other cities, if you look for Albany, under base rate, you have 52.54.
There's a base rate for sewer and water. That's total utility base rate.
For total, these are
Yeah.
water and
On
sewer.
the comparison, we thought it was best that we showed the whole package, and as I said, some communities charge a stormwater or a street utility and other fees, but, so that's all their utility fee, base charges, and consumption charges.
Gotcha, so maybe we need to make sure that when it's put on the screen, if it can say water and sewer on it. I was thinking it was just on the sewer. So, yeah, because a lot of the house, I would imagine most of us on the council have smaller households, and mine is usually the 3 cubic feet for wintertime usage, so a lot of smaller houses is, a lot less usage than what's shown here on the chart. Okay, all right, so council, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, let's do a roll call.
Olson,
Yes.
Collins,
Yes.
Johnson,
No.
Kellum,
No.
Kopsinski,
Yes.
Coburn,
Yes.
42.
Okay, all right, motion carried. Okay, all right, thank you, Mark. Next is business from the public. Anyone here this evening that would like to bring an item forward? Okay, not seeing anyone. Council, next you have adoption of the consent calendar. It's a small one this evening. I'll entertain a motion unless you'd like to have any items pulled off.
I'll make a motion for adoption of the consent calendar.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, and next is the airport security fence improvements. An item that I'm not pleased on.
Yep. Well, and I think the reason for the cost changes are clear here, and What I do want to say, and this falls on me, is this is coming to you late. Generally, we try to get these to you as close to when things are happening in construction. We manage this project out of operations rather than engineering. Engineering's kind of used to our processes. That rests on me, and so I apologize that this is coming to you late. The contract is essentially done. The impact to the city is just under $3,000, $28.48. The FAA grant picks up the rest. The project still is under budget, but we're over that contract amount by more than 10%, requiring your action. So I apologize for getting this to you late. That rests on my shoulders.
Question? There was talk about connecting fences through the ditch at one point?
In the future, yes. It was not part of this project. We don't have the funding, nor do we have the permitting clearance that we would need to do something like that. So as we build up our reserves and we go for another FAA grant, if additional fencing is the priority to address that, we would have to go through the environmental steps and then the contracting steps for something like that.
I guess I just make the statement that when you have a fence that stops in the middle of someplace and you can walk around it, it's really no barrier.
Okay, all right, council?
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. And the only thing I'd like to say on this, and, you know, I've had conversations with staff, and I know they've really tried to kind of accommodate, because of the way this process went on the airport. Fencing was not the usual, you know, public input process that we all like to be able to make sure we have for our decisions is, if the council's out there driving down, you know, Price Road and look at the fence, mostly when you come around the curve, kind of imagine and think, I know it was sort of a political thing. We had to basically approve this. This was done at a different advisory board level where the council didn't know what the fence was going to look like when we, you know, went ahead and proceeded forward with the funding. But look at it to see if this is what you'd like citizens to see for the next 50 years, because that's about how long a fence can stay. If there's an option that we could look at, and that would be planting a hedge along it, like get a 4-foot hedge eventually to kind of soften the look of it, mostly when it comes to around the curb. So someday if you're out there, just kind of look and visualize to see if you think that would make it look better, you know, more appealing as it's blending in with our park property if it had a hedge. And there's also the irrigation system that's already in out there to be able to support a hedge. But it would really sort of soften the look of that fence and make it more appealing and more attractive to our Timberland Park. So yeah, I just appreciate if council would look at that someday and see what you think, or unless you want it to look like that for 50 years. Okay. Next is business from the council. So Rich, anything this evening?
I would just, if I was going to vote right now for something on that fence, I'd say let's do blueberries and raspberries, and if we're going to have to deal with it, let's let somebody eat something off of it.
That's an option.
Oh, blackberries.
Community garden along the airport fence.
You wouldn't need a fence.
Yeah.
That's true.
Okay, Ray,
I just
anything?
feel ready.
Okay, Floyd?
I'll be absent at the next council meeting.
Well, okay, all right, Bessie?
Nothing wrong.
Okay, Bill?
Oh, thank you.
Okay, Dick? Okay, and I have a couple items. I mean, one was kind of a carryover from before. The council, we made a decision a few years ago, and that was to be, it was for West Albany High School wanting to have the illuminated sign out in front. So the code change ended up being for institutions, sort of, that would qualify. So what happened then is a church that was on Spring Hill Road placed one and kind of upset the neighborhood. That illuminated sign that was, what do they call it, Mark, as they rotate?
Electronic message board, I can't remember the,
Reader board.
And this- The scrolling, yeah, one. So when they installed the sign, then staff had to work with the church because some of it did not comply with our code. But it's something that the council, the neighbor, asked, say, the council needs to look at, do you want this to be in more churches included, to stay in our code as being permitted to put these type of signs, and if we're wanting that in other neighborhoods. So maybe if you want to drive by someday, it's the only church that's up on Spring Hill. I think, Floyd, you went by it also, and see what.
It's only on one side. It's fixed lettering
Right.
on one side,
Yeah.
electronic on the other.
Yeah, if I refresh my memory, I thought we had said that there should be a static sign. It couldn't be a moving, rotating.
Change, but it can't change.
I didn't
Fit
see it,
quickly.
I didn't see it scrolling. It is it's digital on the side facing towards the railroad tracks.
It did change. I
so,
remember seeing the
right,
picture.
so the signs have to be monochromatic. They can only change, I'm speaking off the top of my head, I think every 30 seconds. And what happened when the church put it in, I think they had maybe a couple different colors, and it was changing more frequently. They had a time, they would put the time up there, and the colon between the time was flashing. That maybe doesn't seem like much, but I suppose on a dark night, if your windows face that. So we did work with the church, and they, it was inadvertent on their part, and they were quick to come into compliance.
So it meets the code.
It does now.
So the question Sharon's asking is, did we intend to include churches and institutions?
Right. My memory back then, we were more focused on schools, so I didn't really remember that it was going to be for churches then.
I think I remember that it was for any, because it was in that
Not
area.
not business.
No.
It was to
but-
be, but
Right.
institution, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Is
So
that
I think
what it is?
churches were
Yeah.
included, because we discussed in a way that, well, okay,
I
if
don't
we do
think
it for
we
this,
made
then
the
churches
distinction.
can do it too and stuff, and we said, well, yeah, but there's probably not gonna be that many that want it. That's what I recall, but.
Yeah, so if maybe everybody, if you get time, just drive out there someday and see what you see what you think, and if you think that's something that we should look at in our code in the future, if we, want to change and remove churches from there and just keep schools in the code.
Shouldn't be schools.
Okay. And then next is, last week I had told you about the Albany, Western Australia visitors that came to Albany, and their mayor had sent a book signed for us to look at of their community. So Albany, Australia is a smaller community than we are. They're 32,000, and they're more of a newer city when they incorporated. So they have a lot of their architectural designs, and I'll pass some of this down, is similar to, our historic districts too, so it was really interesting seeing through their book. But their mayor had sent a letter, and it was regarding support for Friendship Force. It gives me great pleasure to introduce the City of Albany, Western Australia, to Albany, Oregon. I trust you will enjoy the cultural exchange between our two cities. Albany sits on the south coast of Western Australia, widely regarded as one of the most beautiful and diverse coastlines in the world. Our region boasts beaches which are routinely named among the best beaches in Australia, such as that incredible Little Beach and our iconic Middleton Beach, with local wines and produce, stunning beaches, rich heritage, and national parks in every direction. Albany is truly the jewel of the great southern region in Western Australia. On Australia's calendar this year is the Anzac Centenary, marking 100 years since Australian and the New Zealand troops left for Gallipoli during World War I. The nation's centenary of Anzac, to be commemorated from 2014 to 2018, will be one of the most significant commemorations to take place in the lifetimes of most Australians. I commend Friendship Force for their commitment to providing opportunities for our citizens to explore new countries and cultures and their dedicated approach to connecting our two cities with identical names, Albany. Yours sincerely, Dennis Wellington, Mayor, City of Albany, Western Australia. So it was really an enjoyable time visiting, with the folks. And also, there was one thing that I kind of asked them about, sort of what they find in their community is of trying to get citizens engaged and to be more involved. And they're finding the same as us, as a lot of the younger adults are really more in tune to a lot of the social media. They're not getting out as doing as many activities or being involved with many civic organizations or, other types of nonprofits. So they're kind of finding some of those, same challenging, things that we see, is wanting to really bring our young adults out and have them really be active in the community. So it was an enjoyable time I had, visiting with them, and there was another couple that was from New Zealand. I got a picture of them, so I'm going to send it to Kate so she can send it to what Jenny and Stephanie that visited with us last year, I believe that was, and so she can be able to see those folks that came to visit Albany. So they were just here for a couple days and really enjoyed our community. Okay, so that's it for this evening, and Wes?
Didn't have anything to add.
Okay, all right, staff, have anything? Okay,
Thank you. I wanted to ask you a quick question and see if we couldn't get something on your next meeting, and the city attorney suggested that I bring it up sort of briefly here before you. This is regarding the Edgewater Village property. They are interested in purchasing a very small sliver of land that the city owns. This is on the very north end of Main Street, right where it intersects the Dave Clark walking path. And when we vacated that street, half of the street there at the north end came back to the city of Albany, and they're interested to purchase it in order to finalize the platting for their development. And so I wanted to ask you tonight if you would be willing to ask the city attorney to take action and put steps in to formally transfer the property to them, and that we would bring that back at the next meeting and have a public hearing to that extent.
Council?
Is that a purchase with actual money?
That is a purchase with actual money.
And it's a purchase price based on what we think it's actually worth, as opposed to any kind of subsidy.
Fine with me.
What do we think it's worth?
I don't have that number with me.
But we had
But
some
we have it.
evaluation.
We'll do a whole staff report and have a public
$17
hearing.
million would be good.
Yeah,
No,
something
but
that.
the concept, you've seen a lot with Edgewater Village that involved public assistance. There's no public assistance component to this.
Right.
The proposal is to purchase it at fair market value.
There's no hint at this point that the city will ever need that property for any reason whatsoever.
It's land we got back because it was vacated, and we happened to own the property, and so we got the benefit, if you will. It's a more or less useless piece of isolated land.
We probably maintain easements over that still?
We can, certainly.
Yeah.
Okay,
Great.
council okay with that? It'll come back to us?
Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you, Kate. And then we have Kara next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday.
Okay. Okay, staff have anything else? So, all right. So our next meeting is going to be a joint City Council Albany School Board meeting, June 23rd. Marilyn, what time will that one be at? 7?
7, and it's at
PM.
the school district office.
Actually, I believe, I spoke with the superintendent today, and the plan is to have it at 7:15, our normal meeting time, because they need to have a meeting prior, their own meeting prior to joining the meeting with us.
Will we have a work session at 4 that day? We won't then, okay? So then our regular session is June 25th, and with that, we're adjourned, okay?